Today's video is actually kinda made by mistake, in a way. The thing is that I didn't actually mean to do this when I first started editing, but as soon as I dropped my raw videos into Premiere Pro, I've seen that it took me almost 1 hour. So this is pretty much what we are gonna do. Guys, as I just mentioned in the beginning of this video, today is all about creating a composition in 60 minutes. So for this one I got a bunch of stock images and assets. Here you can see all of them, to which I added a few overlays to make the artwork more interesting. This will be used for the overall environment, this for the main focus of the composition, and also some additional images to fill up the remaining space. To see how it all goes, I think we should need to first open up Photoshop. I decided to start with the background, of course as usual, so I took this cloud image and warped the edges to give it a rounded appearance, as you can see. Then the second image will be used for the sky, and I masked out the bottom part with a soft brush to get this clean transition. Here I did change the angle a bit and it looked way better than before, and with a color balance adjustment layer I changed the values for the clouds. This hill will be used on top of the flying mountain, and also you may think, where did that come from? Well, it doesn't really matter because I replaced it anyway. So after I made the shape of the ground, I used the grass brush to paint back the edges. I do this step every time because I really don't like having that harsh margin, and it also makes it look real and always works. Here is the actual image that will be used for the island, and I made the selection with the quick selection tool, moved it a bit in order to match the shape that I already have, and also a bit of warping. I had to make sure that the ground is actually matching the rock below it, and because it has a lot of shapes, I kinda needed to create that same thing on the top part as well. For me, this part on the right is absolutely horrible, and with the lasso tool I made a selection and used the content aware fill feature to replace it. After quick adjustments on the edges, I lowered the brightness for the entire island, and at the same time I increased the contrast. Now it's time to add the moon, which will also be the main focus of the composition. With the marquee tool, which by the way I don't think I've ever used it before in any artwork, but it was perfect in this case, I made a circle and transformed it into a half moon, to which I started applying different effects. First one being hue and saturation because I wanted to make it yellow. For the glowing effect I used a different method. I double clicked on the moon layer and first I applied an outer glow, the color being white, the blend mode set on linear dodge add and the opacity around 50%, then an inner glow, the color this time is yellow, the blend mode is on screen and the opacity is also around 50%. On top of that I used a solid color adjustment layer to amplify the effect. And because there is so much light, it also needs to be reflected on the grass, so with a soft brush and a low flow I painted all over the place. Because I used the mountain as an island, it doesn't have a flat structure, it is quite the opposite, it has a lot of rocks, and with an exposure adjustment layer I painted some ambient shadows here and there. Then it's time to add the first overlay, which is this abstract shape. I set the blend mode to screen, moved it around and placed it on top of the moon, and with the hue and saturation adjustment layer I changed the colors to yellow and green. I took the brush and masked the edges and also some warp to match the shape of the moon. From this image I only used the flying rocks and I selected them with the quick selection tool. I adjusted the brightness and the contrast and made them more bluish. This one will be placed in the background as a transition to space. First I had to remove the comet from the sky, then with a soft brush I masked the bottom and then I found the perfect spot. With a solid color adjustment layer set on linear dodge add, the color being on a bright yellow, I had to paint highlights on every single flying rock. The settings for the brush are the same, it has to be soft and a low flow. Here I added the second overlay, which will make the sky look more magical. The blend mode is set on screen and I lowered the opacity to around 30%. Then I painted some haze in the background. After that I wanted to amplify the effect on the rocks, so I made some light that bounces off of them. Here the secret is to use 100% flow with a brush a bit bigger than the edge, and after you are done painting just lower the overall opacity of the layer. This bonsai tree will be used to fill up the image, and I really didn't know what else to use. It needed some warping, and after I lowered the brightness and warped it again, it was exactly how I wanted it to be. The second image of a tree will be used as part of the first one. The idea is to make it look like it comes from behind and wraps around the rock. With a bit of warping I managed to do that, and then I had to make sure it looks real. For this, the only solution was to paint some shadows, and I gotta say that it really changed a lot. The bonsai needed highlights because the moon is extremely close to it, and I did this with a solid color adjustment layer, and on top of that I used the blend leaf option, which really made it look incredibly well. And guys, that's pretty much everything for this video. I really enjoy creating this composition, and after seeing the result that I had in just 60 minutes, 58 to be more precise, I'm thinking of making this idea part of the channel. Maybe you can suggest me anything else, or if you like it, let me know down below in the comments. One more thing, I had in mind for quite some time to make some collaborations here on YouTube. This means that we can either make an art challenge in which we will use the same images, or I can ask someone to provide me with random stock assets and we'll see what I end up with. All of this being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.